Hi, my name is Robert Thomas DeVincentis, and I'm the author of the Book of Kings, which deals with the aftermath science, and that's going to be explained. You can find this book, if you can see it here. I think you can get it on Amazon. You really want the hard copy, which is easier than the Kindle or whatever. It makes more sense with the pages and everything as you turn it. And again, this book has several names besides Book of Kings, Science, Nature, Man, and God, The Circle of the Earth. And it's also Ancient Aftermath Science. So if you were to Google my name, the author, you'd be able to find the book, Robert Thomas DeVincentis, The Book of Kings, with the little girl and the telescope. I'm not here to sell books. I'm here to enlighten people into a different way of thinking about what's happening in our society here in the United States today. We're going to talk about man today, science, nature. We're going to talk about man, where he came from and where he is today. We have this whole new idea that is lacking for educational purposes in finding out the historical origins of things. Today we have science that acts basically completely devoid of God. And we talked about Moses given the book of Genesis, where God spoke to him face to face on many occasions, and he wrote the book. And he's the author of our creation, talking about God and everything, how he did everything in 6 days and then resting on the seventh day. So on the sixth day, he created man. So that's where we're going to be looking. So today, what do we see? If you go to the different venues on the internet, you're going to see everybody that's got the names of all these big telescopes that they sent out and probes. And it's a daily occurrence now where they're saying, oh, there's life over here and there's life on the planet, but it's, millions and millions and billions of miles away, light years. And really, science is acting as a bad witness. They're claiming to know things that they don't really know. And their perception is that, they're actually claiming that that Earth and all its things that came here were made by water from a comet or something that came here. And then it developed over millions of years to make all the things that you see here physically. And that's not true, because I had said earlier that all the elements in the world coming together can't create one living thing. And if you could show that, I would certainly like to see that. So now they're claiming water on planets and the possible ability that they have life there and all this. But all the probes that they're sending out doesn't show anything. A lot of times they'll say, oh, there's something over there, it's lit up, and they're claiming all kinds of alien life and that. But really, if you watch these videos, there's nothing there. They're just all speculation. There's nothing of any concrete nature. Now, I will say this, that there is a phenomenon within our Earth's atmosphere and that, of things that we can't explain, and they do fall outside of the physics of the things that we know. These things that can move, and then you got everybody saying, "Oh, we found aliens," and these spacecrafts, and well, I don't know. There's no really concrete evidence. It's still all your best guess. And yet, people, and they're credible people, they, claim they've seen things. And even myself, I've seen things that I can't really explain. But at the same time, I want you to understand that God's not going to create something to take away your focus from Him as the Creator. And there's no competition with supreme beings out there that have greater intelligence and those kinds of things. And I already shown that if that were true, then Jesus Christ, who was the Word of God, the incarnate that became man here, nothing could be better than that. That would have to be the ultimate. And yet God proclaims that we're made in His image. So here we go with the image. Adam. If you take science at its face value today, with all this evolutionary thing where man went through different periods and became this, that, and eventually where we are today, of all these different names and places and centuries and all these different finds in that. But there really isn't any half thing coming out of the water. The mechanics of man, he has the same anatomy, his fingers and all these kinds of things. I'm not saying there can't be what we call, some anomaly or freak of nature, if you want to say that, where somebody doesn't have all those things. But normally, as a rule, the majority of human beings are going to be the same. So if you're finding something that's not totally human, then there's something that needs to be explained. Sometimes they'll come up with little parts of the jawbone or something, and they're going to create the whole person out of it or whatever. These were great scientists and people, and they had great imaginations, but the fact of the matter remains is that it remains a theory. It's not something that you can hang your hat on. It's a scientific theory, and those are always subject to change. So if we take Adam being created on the sixth day, and there's an accounting of that, it said that he was taken from the clay or the dirt of the earth, and God breathed into him, and he became a living soul. And then from him, the last thing that God created actually was the woman. She was taken out of man because God felt that the man needed a helper, someone to live with. And of course, the ultimate goal was to reproduce. So the man and the woman were not born of a woman or a man coming together or anything like that. They were born supernaturally by a miraculous power coming together. And this whole idea that, and this follows through in the predisposition of all the living things, that there's no way science could build all these things through evolution, and they all come together so perfectly to create the counter, the male and the female, in such a way. If you're a man and you look at a woman, and you're going to say, "Whoa, that's something really spectacular," and you're going to think, "Well, did it just come up as something that was made by nature, or do you think maybe God did it?" I think a normal human being would realize that, hey, I've been around for a long time. I don't see anything being made like that, coming out of the water. No, of course not. You're not going to see that. So, but this is what's happened. They want to say that we are the descendants of the animal kingdom, apes and stuff like that. But in reality, it's not. So what about Adam? I've given talks about this before. Adam, basically, if you go by what the Bible says, or indicates that nothing could compare to the glory of Adam, or nothing could compare to the beauty of Eve. In which I actually believe that, from my particular vantage or viewpoint, that God took all the beauty of all the things He created and He gave it to the woman. You say, well, why would you say that? Well, if you see the woman, your spouse or whoever, she's going to rival the sun and all the beautiful things, because that's the way it is. And I suppose maybe the exact opposite might happen with the woman when she looks at the man, her husband or future person that they're going to marry or whatever. And that's a normal thing. So anyway, Adam, what about that guy? He was a better model than we are today, and yet they're trying to say, oh, we got progressively better and became who we are today. No, that's not true. In fact, we're just a mere copy of who Adam really was, but we're not even the exact copy of what he was, because Adam had things that we don't have. He was able to live darn near 1,000 years. The people before the fall lived a long time. So our lives were cut short after the fall. So in that sense, guess what? Are we a better model if we don't live as long as what Adam did? Of course, that's true. Adam, actually, on that standard, would be a better model. Okay, so what about the intellectual part of man? You think Adam was any less than what we could be today? You think if Adam went to the same schools that we went to in our technology, in our highly technological world that we live in, that he would be any less than what we are? No, as a matter of fact, Adam might even be better. You know, Adam is the one, it says God brought all the animals to him to see what he would call them. So his language, his ability to communicate with God, those were all God-given to the first parents of the world. And then it was up to them to teach their children thereafter, to nurture them and to bring them up. That was their job, and to be fruitful, to multiply. So this is something that follows through, and evolution, as it's being portrayed in the schools, medicine, you name it, all across the world. But how does that really affect, that? I mean, how people came about? It does. It really has a very interesting effect, because when you start tampering with the things that were created by God, by trying to change them into this or that, or to try to make a betterment on the economy of God when he created something, you're actually trying to improve on what God had already made, and that's not really possible. You might be in error, and you could cause great problems on the face of the earth. So there's a whole lot of other things in this world that we have to be careful with, that we have to take into account, that nature didn't bring about these things, but rather they have a nature or a predisposition that's built into everything, the plants, the animals, and things that we have here. So what I'm saying here is really in a direct conflict and contradictory to what you're going to find in the schools, and what you're going to learn. And these are things that are going to distance you from your knowledge about what's here, your happiness, perhaps, where you're living constantly being bombarded that God's abandoned you somehow, or abandoned his world that he made, and that we're all left to our own. And it's, there's plenty of biblical stories. If you go back with the Jews when they were in the desert, they were always complaining about this, that, and the other. And of course, they ran into problems. And some of the things that they had were legitimate complaints and things like that. But God corrected all that. And he also corrected the attitude that people had. So with great power, if you go back to the intelligence of what man had here, it was God-given. And of course, the intelligence stayed within a community of people that worshiped and believed in God, and followed down through the centuries to Christ, And then, of course, Christ, mostly in the Western world, where technology eventually took off. And then the rediscovering of people already here on the earth at different locations that have been there for thousands of years after the flood, that were dispersed after the Tower of Babel. So that's in short the what do you call it, the history, if you want to say it, of man. To some degree, it doesn't follow totally everything, but that's the history. And if you're not getting that in school, well, then you're going to have to get it somewhere else. And I said I'm a historian of historical origins, so this follows with the history of that. And it doesn't necessarily fit into your textbooks that you're going to find in school. So all this is for your good and for your enjoyment and for your enlightenment, so that you can find peace with yourself, and you can find peace and eventually work your way with greater knowledge into the things that Christ had brought here on earth. That's your eternal salvation for those that believe in him. And for that, God recommends, and he started his church here, the Catholic Church, the popes, and all those that follow through the centuries. So I hope this is a good information for you, and I hope to talk to you again about aftermath science. Thank you.